Hi everybody, anybody out there on the side waiting? Hi Luke, good to see you mate. How are you? Derek, good evening to you mate. Nice for you to join us tonight. Jeff, good evening. Nice for you to come in, and thanks for your comment on the video earlier. Appreciated that. Hi John, good evening mate. How are you? Appreciated your comment on my video. That was a bit of a nightmare, wasn't it? Mind you, you seem to be having a few of your own right up there right now. Wendy, good evening. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Oh, good Luke. Well done. That'd be great. Thank you. Need to turn down your volume. Can hear me. Okay, right. Let's just turn that volume down a little bit. Is that better? Hopefully that's better. Let me know if it is. No, there shouldn't be any hiss. James, good evening to you. Guess what, silly Billy? Did you read that message I sent you? How silly I was. I sent the tube with the rubbing in, but I forgot to drop that flipping little section of pit in there. So I'm going to have to send that separately. Yeah, nightmares. I hope not. I hope for you not. Am I too quiet now? Okay. Okay, I'm going to go somewhere in the middle. Is that better? There shouldn't be any hiss, and I'll explain all that in a minute. Hopefully this will be a lot cleaner. Is Teresa? Have I seen Teresa on? Oh, hello Teresa. Nice of you to join us for this little watercolour. Is that a little watercolour? They're all 15 by 9. Don't do little ones really. Well, I do, but not on this. Right. Just wait for Ben and a couple more, and then we'll get cracking. So, Wendy, you should be pleased to know that there is no hiss and no problems. At least I hope there's not. You can tell me if there is, but hopefully there isn't. And yeah. Sorry James, I'm a bit of a dimwit, but I got everything ready, and I got your address, and then I rushed down to the post office, didn't give it another thought, but I'll get sorted out, not a problem. Is the hiss loud? I don't understand that. Mark, good evening. Ah, that's cool. You've been fitting a decanter in a class 85. Join the club with that one, Mark. Not on an 85, but still. I can't understand this hiss. John, you're saying that the hiss is loud, and Luke's not got a hiss, and I tested this extensively the other day with somebody. Okay, so there was a hiss, but not now. Right, well, I'll wait for Ben to join us, and he will tell me what he thinks of this. I can just turn the volume down a tweak more. I'm trying to get some clean audio, and I'm getting fed up with this. And I can't hear it from your end. I'm not sure if it's picking up the fans off my laptop. I'm beginning to suspect it. No, I appreciate that, John, but I'm trying to get rid of the hiss altogether, mate. That's the idea. It's annoying that it's there, and when I listen to the playback, I can really hear it myself. And I can't think how anybody can sit through 2 hours of listening to me waffling on, talking about painting with this almighty gush of air going on in the background. It's awful. So I am trying to get rid of it. But hi Sylvia, nice of you to join us. You've got hiss. Oh dear Lord. Okay. What can I do? I'm going to try one thing and tell me if the hiss goes, please, everybody. All right. I'm going to pull out that. I'm going to go. Alright, that's going to clip for a second. Okay, so you should have sound back. I don't know what is going on. The hiss is back. I heard that hiss in the ambient noise on the thing. Good evening, Sue. Oh, this is not going well. So much hiss. Look, is it still that bad now? The only thing I can do is change the computer next time and take my one off and put my old one on and see if that has any other benefit. That's better now. But I've turned the sound right down, so I'm going to get on, or else we're going to be 9 o'clock and I won't have done a thing. And I don't know how many people are watching, but hopefully you'll get something and it won't be too bad. I can only apologize, people. I really don't know. We've been battling this for a few weeks now, and I just thought Ben and I have been working on it several hours or a couple of hours the other day, and we thought we got to the better of it, but I don't know. Okay, well, hopefully it's better. Right, I'm going to be talking about now Pinmill, one of my favorite areas. Yeah, well, the mic is on now. That it all went dead after the mic, so I've had to put the mic back on. Can hardly hear. God, I think it's different for everybody. Hopefully that's a little better, but the hiss may go up. Turn your volume up, Wendy. All right. Now then, one of my favourite areas is a place called Pinmill, just outside of Ipswich, and it's on the River Orwell, and it's a stunning place with the butt of sherry right on the quay, and the front wall of the butt of sherry. I'm not even sure. It's not the. It's the oyster. What am I on about? But butt of sherry, that's in Hyde. I just am losing it. I do apologise, everybody. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, that's better. Right. Well, it's only a case by tweaking. I can only apologise. Anyway, the Button Oyster is the pub that I am confusing with the one in town locally. The Button Oyster, and the front wall goes right the way down to the water. So at when the tide is in, the front of the pub is literally covered in water. So heck knows what the cellars are like. Yeah, I have turned it up my end. Okay, Wendy, we'll crack on. I'm going to put in just a suggestion somewhere just below halfway. I'm tempted to make it even higher. Do you know I'm going to do that? I'm going to make the suggestion of the horizon line just up there somewhere. I'm just going to run a light through line just as a guide, nothing more. We've got two wonderful Thames barges in the picture. Now they are over on one side, but I do need to make sure that I get enough height in here for the masts. The masts are the main masts on a Thames barge. If you didn't know, just a quick bit of background, they were the main working boat of the East Coast in the last century, not in the, in sort of the last 150 years, I think it was, something like that. Yeah, I wish it was. It's going to be Scotch time in a minute, Jeff. And they plied all the trade up and down the rivers of the East Coast, and they were made specially designed with flat bottoms, and that's why they could navigate these rivers very, very successfully. Now I'm just going to be drawing two. This one is the main one, and it's called Batula. Now I'm got a sneaky feeling, and I'm not 100% sure of this, but Batula is just a standard barge, but she's not a full size. I'm pretty sure that the guy who owns the next one, which is being refurbed, does go out. It's actually racing now. I'm not sure of the name of it, but the guy who owns it is a guy called Webb, and he owns the boatyard, which is literally behind where I'm standing, a large boatyard, and he owns that with his father. The whole family do, and he and his brother have this boat that they've been restoring for a number of years, and so yeah, and that's what this one is. This one is one called, as I say, Batula, and Batula is, I believe, a 3/4 Thames barge in size, as it were. Now they're almost out. They've been on the mud, and they're not much deeper than that. There's very, very little water under them and around them, as you can tell. So we are just going to put that in there, and you can see most of the hull out of the water. You can also see here, and I think this may have to be extended a little bit more, and I may have to move the mast down a little further. So I'm just going to do that right now and give that a little bit more here, and use the eraser. Now I'm concentrating a little bit. I'm not paying too much attention to the chat at the moment, so by all means chat on. I will join it as when I see it. Now I'm just going to take that up there like so and bring that to about there. Now these masts, what I was saying is the masts here are double height. This is how they are at rest. The mast here you can see is split. The dark black part in the photograph, if you can see that well enough, and the brown part with the white cap to it. That's the fixed part of the mast, and then this part here gets winched up and on a series of metal rings that hold it up, and then it's into place. And then you've got this great big rear mast which dissects the mainsail when it is out, like so. And part of me thinks that I should bring this whole thing down. Oh heavens above, look at this. So it happens, it can happen, but I just really decided that this wants to drop down to about here. So I'm going to really press on fast as I can to get, I've got a little bit of an outline from the last drawing, so I can quickly bring this back into play. But yes, I just felt that was just a bit too high, like so. And you got the rear on here, at the back end comes round and up and over onto there. And then we've got the mast going up here now, giving it a little less height but a little bit more room at the top of the painting. That was really quite crucial. Then coming back in here, looking at where this is in relation to the rest of it. So it sort of comes at a nice angle, not many angles as I'm suggesting with that. Comes at a nice angle to meet just above the top and bottom of that mast, like so. What I was saying is that this part of the mast is winched up. I think you got that. Then you've got these big bow planes, these one of these big heavy metal and wooden structures each side, and these, when they are under full sail and in good sea, these will be dropped down to give the whole boat stability, and then they will be raised up as the boat comes into shore and navigates the very shallow muddy river estuaries, such as those that are around Sandwich and Orr, and all the way up through the east coast, including the River Orwell, and in all of those areas. As I say, there are many of them. Backwater, Blackwater, all of those areas where these vessels, as I say. And there was once upon a time, I was always told by somebody that they were manned invariably by one man and his son, maybe a dog, and sometimes the man's wife would be on board to do some cooking and some sorting out, but invariably the guys looked after themselves. And yeah, that's how it was. And these things did not need the sort of many people that are currently, when you see these things racing around the coastline, they have God knows how many crew on board to make this thing work. Some of them are made of wood and some of them are made of steel, and I'm not sure what either of these are made from, to be quite honest with you. I really don't know the answer to that. They have, as you can see, very different configurations in terms of their look. And this too has a scoop out the front which forms the bow, just a point there, and then that will come back and around, so you start to lose that. But it's got to be a little bit higher than I've got it, because obviously it's further back and further behind this first one, so we've got to make that look right for a kickoff. So that will be okay for that nice curvature. This is one of those I just want to get this drawing right, because if I don't get it right, then nothing else is just going to go to plan at all. Now this one has got both masts up in place, and so they will, in my photo, go off of the painting plane, as it were, like so. And there is this is something that they have, but I've never actually painted them in. These little cross bearers on the boat, I've really never put them into any of my Thames Barge paintings for some reason. It's because at such distance you don't really see them, so you don't really bother about them too much. This here has got the rear mast. This one too has got one, but I can't see any evidence of it in place right now, so maybe it's out for refurb or whatever the reason is. I'm going to take the water level of the river. This area at the back here is the River Orwell. It actually comes down so you don't see any more this side, and here is an old hulk of a boat, which we're merely going to suggest a dark area in here. You can't see too much of it. Is the scene really close then, or did you capture the boats elsewhere? No, these boats are always here, and you can get down on the mud. I wouldn't go too far out, as that tide comes in really fast, and that mud is extremely deep in places. But this area is literally, it's part of the whole of the River Orwell, and this area is, as I say, it's Pin Mill, and it is a beautifully recognized location along the Orwell. There is others like Shotley Point and other areas, and then you go on up the river towards Ipswich itself. So that is pretty much all the drawing I'm going to be doing on this part here. I've got a few boats which I'm just going to suggest a couple of little shapes out on the river. There is a lot of mooring, and at different times of the year there are hundreds of yachts moored off of here all over the place, and the boat yards that are behind me are absolutely full of them during the winter. There is what's called a hard, and that is a long, it's to the left just outside of the shot of this photograph, but the hard is a concrete structure to the best part that goes down way out into the water, with great big tie-off pylons each side, as there are here, and boats would have moored up to that, and bits and pieces could have been retrieved at different times, and that's what the hard is. There is actually one at Orwell just the same. Right, I'm just gonna try and look at that there. I think that's about right, like so. Okay, and yeah, so I'll digress. Just checking, there is a small dinghy right next to this here. Gonna stick that in there like so, and that's just tied up with a little cable each end, little rope each side. There are derricks on the back which take these actually take a small dinghy. All of the boats tend to carry these, which will hold a little dinghy at a very funny angle on most of them, and you can see some posts in the background. Now these posts are mooring posts. To the far right of me from this way there is a whole raft of moored up houseboats. There is a huge community that runs along the riverbank here next to the pub, and most of them are probably holiday homes, I don't know, but there are certainly some residentials there as well. I'm just going to suggest one or two areas here that are the mud as the water is coming in, and that gives me great lead in and directional lines to go towards these boats. So from that point of view we're pretty much done. I'm just having a quick look at the sketch itself. I think this is a little high, so I'm just going to take that back a little bit and a little lower like so, and there'll be the same on that side going away. There is always an anchor sitting on the front of these like so, and then you've got a big dark passage of whatever that hulk is left ready to be started work on at some point. Okay, so we're going to leave it at that, and we're going to crack on. Just see if I can save that. Ben, we got 15. Ben, people are reporting all sorts of things: hisses, no hisses, too loud, too quiet. I did what we did. I don't think I've changed anything, but maybe you can enlighten me as to what you're hearing, as we were doing it on your system the other day, so it would be a good gauge. Right, now let's crack on with the watercolour. It would be good to get my brushes. I forget something every time. This time I forgot the brushes. All right, so I'm going to wet up, and I'm going to go with a lovely dagger brush. I have several of these, and they are very, very lovely brushes from Rosemary. Anyone ordering, I talked to Rosemary today, anybody who is ordering brushes from Rosemary right now, please expect they are using Royal Mail, and they have been told that anything up to a 2-week delivery, which is crazy. So that's worth bearing in mind if you are ordering a brush. Don't leave it to the last minute when you need it, because you may dip out on that. Right, I'm just going to check the chat's not moved, because it doesn't seem to have gone very far. No, that's it. Anyone else that I've missed saying hello to? I don't think so. Lucy, Sylvie, no, we'll go with that. All right, so I'm just going to come in with some very beautiful sky. Again, I'm using 300-pound rough paper from, I can't remember which one this is. I picked it up. I think it's Saunders. It could be Archer's, but I use both of them. And I'm just going to come in here, and I just want a very sunny day. I'm going to bring that all the way through and just suggest a little bit of cloud form. Get rid of that. Little bit of cloud form as this comes very, very softly down, and a lot of water in here. And don't forget, I've always said this, that if you're bringing down your bead to allow only go through areas where you want it to sort of turn, where it's going to be darker. Don't let it go on anywhere that you expect it to remain light, because you will be severely disappointed with the result. And I'm going to put a little bit of magenta into this bluish mix and some cobalt, and I'm going to continue on down through here with, in a sense, what is the River Orwell. So my bead will carry on down. I can take it all the way through the boats, because the boats are going to be that much darker, so I can carry on with my bead. And at the end of this little process, then we've got to really wait for it to dry up for us, so before we continue on. So I've left a little set of darks in here, and I want to bring some of these cloud forms this way into these, a little hair there which I don't really like the look of. Get that out, would be good. So I'm just suggesting some little hairs. Oh, it's one of those days. It's getting worse by the second. Oh, okay, I'm moaning, and I shouldn't moan. Nothing to moan about. Right, I'm just going to come back in with something that's way too strong. I'm going to come back out of that, add a little bit of blue to it, and just take that off. This is going to be, in a sense, my clouds, my lower clouds coming into the hills, and leave it like that. It doesn't want much, it's merely suggestive, and it does its job. Alright, let this set up, let it do what it wants, and then carry on with the bead. Now the bead is important. I always say this. If you let your bead dry up upon you, you will have a problem and an issue moving forward. So don't let the bead dry, or else you'll end up with, as I say, issues. Right, I'm going to leave that water to go on through here. Take the bead all the way down. It will dry up lighter. You're looking at the water, and it does look very, very clean and light, and sure, it is, but we're going to bring it all the way down through, adding some weight to it as it comes on down to the bottom of the picture, like so. One or two areas slightly darker in here to add weight to this water. Take that out, take that out, so we've got a clean area. I'm going to let that run off to nothing under there. Now the problem with this is that you can see what will happen is that as this water collects along this baseline of this paper, the paper is one certain amount of substrate, and the masking fluid or the masking tape is almost plasticized, so it will not dry at all where this will dry. And so what will happen is any water left on here will want to push back and bleed back into the thing. Not quite back at what we got the other day. Tonight the AGC on the camera is coming in and out, but we knew there was a feature we could not disable. We'll try and do that. There must be an answer to that, because it's very, very frustrating. I wanted to do some streaming on the trains next week, and I don't think I can until I get this really nailed. It's just not a pleasant byproduct. I want to touch that, but I'm not going to. I should have touched it at the time. I'll live with it and we'll make something of it. I'm sure it'll be fine. Now I've got to really wait for this to dry, and to that end this will give you a bit of hiss. Hold your mute buttons ready and off we go with the hairdryer, holding it up high so it doesn't give an immediate blast. Okay, sorry about that. I hope it wasn't that painful. Right, let's go in with a slightly smaller brush and play around with a few bits of detail in the back here. First and foremost, let's just take a quick look at our background bank on the river, Orwell in the distance, and let's just see what we want to do for that. I'm going to come in with some raw sienna. I'm using a bit of that dirty old purple, but I want to get a little bit of green going in it. So a little bit of the blue, maybe just a touch of the phthalo green, and we'll come in with a very simple, but maybe not so dark as that. Let's just come in with a little bit more yellow in there and just take that off. Now if you've got any white areas, not worried about boat masts, if you've got any white areas, then now's the time to consider saving those and working around those shapes. Keep your area at the base here nice and even, and as you come into your craft, just go around the shape that you can see and back up again. Preserve the edges, preserve what you can see. There are all sorts of bits of pieces on this boat. I'm not proposing to put those in. I am merely drawing the shapes of the boats, and that will be for me just superb and what I'm looking to do. Don't want to do any more than that. So I'm just going to come through here, a bit more water, and looking at everything as I go. Like so, and take that through there, and that just isolates those boats quite nicely, and take that off into the distance. Now if you want to come in later, which we probably will do, we will mix up a little bit more darks in there and just give and suggest that there are some trees and foliage that we can see, but right now they will just bleed away to nothing and we will have nothing for the result of doing it. So let's just hang fire, let these areas dry up, and then we can come back in and do some more work on that area. But essentially we've done the bank on the other side, and that's great. Hi Beverly. I didn't see you creep in the side there. Nice to see you. You've been missing a lot of our Brancaster ones. We've been doing several paintings of late from Brancaster, and they've been pretty awesome. But tonight, as I say, it's Thames Barges. Right, So now let's have a look at what we've got to do in our water. We have got the reflections, but before I get there, I want to put in a few darks. Now I'm going to come in here later with some gouache to finish these boats off. I'm not going to try too hard and preserve their shape. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of phthalo blue, bit of cobalt blue into there, making a slightly darker mix of blue, and bring that all the way through this water in this fashion. And it's like an area of the river that's catching a little bit of breeze as it's going through, and then that dissipates as it comes this way. So you've now got another wave of color into there. And then I want to put in a definite more violet value, maybe a touch of that blue at the same time, just a little deeper, and let some of these shapes come through and create a little bit more weight into the water in one or two places. But let your brush, see how I'm just allowing that to just skate over the surface. Let that skate through, and it will set itself up, and you'll have not to do too much work to make it look, in a sense, watery, if that's the best way to describe it. Just leave that and let that set up. You can, by all means, add a little bit more weight to that. I'm just going to come in and add just a touch. That's probably a little too much of a touch. Just want to put in a little deeper value in there. That will dry back out on me, not a problem. Just one or two marks like that that suggest that there are flows in the water, like so. And we're just going to let that dry up, because a lot of the darks now will then make this seem very, very good. Right, please don't worry about the hiss, please, and do the railway stream next week. Yeah, well, I'm thinking about it. I don't know quite what I'm going to do on it, but I'm thinking about it, John. Seriously thinking about it. Okay, I'm going to put the first part and value of a red value into the side of Mr. Webb's Thames Barge. So I'm going to use a little bit of Indian red and a little bit of burnt sienna for this mix. And I'm just going to try it out and see where I like it or not. So it's just around here. If I go too far down on the side of the boat, please don't fret that, because of course it's going to be black, and that will not worry. So this is going to come around here like so. I can't really preserve too much of what I wanted to do there. There's quite a bit of light there, and I'm going to try and save that, and I'm just going to leave that as it is. Now I want to put a little bit more red to it, so I'm going to come in with a bit of vermilion in there and just shape up and make this a little deeper red that comes up before it starts hitting the bow, like there. But then I'm going to take off with a damp brush and take some of this pigment out as it comes over where it's catching some of the light. So I'll leave that like that, and that's still red. The local color is this red ochre color on the painted, but of course it's showing light in a very different way. I'm going to use a little bit of dirted up yellow, raw sienna, just to put in the bottom part here of the boat. And don't worry again if it doesn't seem to do too much to the whole thing, it will do. And I'm going to use very much the same sort of dirty ochre color into the top of this boat here. And it doesn't matter that I've come into the side of this one. This is merely a first coat, and of course it's also along the bottom of this barge here. So I'm going to put that in there. Alright, now then, where else do we need to start looking at? Well, we've got the darks on the boat that we can play around with. We can come in and put the mast in. We can do that right now. Let's use some of our ready ochre colour and put some more raw sienna to that. And I'm just going to come through with this, I don't know if they call this the jib or boom or what, but I'm going to use a very steady hand and hold my breath as I come down with this. A surgeon I probably would not have made. Oh, that's not so bad. That's better than I thought. Ah, there you go. Yes, I concur with Wendy Beverly. I hope you're doing very, very well. Right, so that's got that horrible one out the way. There are two more to do, and I'm certainly going to go in with this first one here and try and get that away very, very carefully. And there, and that's that one. All right, we've got the dark one to do, but we'll leave that for the moment, and we'll come back to it. I do want to put in the first of my blacks. Now the thing is that it's not going to be black. The first one is not going to be black. It's going to be a very dark, deep indigo blue. I'm going to use some of this blue here. Going to knock some indigo into that right now. And that will be essentially the first coat on the dark parts of my boat. And you might think, well, I've got a long way to go. Yeah, well, yes, we have. But we're not going to jump too soon, because there are a lot of darks that should have been a little drier before I put that on, but hey, there you go. Should have waited, I didn't. And there's the front end of that boat, so we've got that going up, over and around the back of Petula. And then we're going to come in with the back end of this boat and suggest that, leaving the odd little bit of white, and we can come all the way through that bows plane and down into the base here, and pick up some more color going up here. Now look, at there is a lovely little stripe. Now I can actually be very careful now and leave that just short of the top. A bit more water would be going down very well, and leave that, as I say, leave that at the top there and let that come all the way down. I'm really praying right now that I put that dark in on the other side of this boat, hoping that this is dry enough to accept it. I could be wrong, but we shall see. We just got away with it. Alright, this gone in very, very dry, but I'm not overly worried by that. I'm just going to take this down a little lower to the sea that's coming in, like that. And just going to look at this one again and just tidy that up for a second or two. Now that is quite light there, so I've lost it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift that. Now you see it's bled here too. That I'm not worried about, because I've got a reflection to go in there. So I've been saved by that little bit, but this is the little bit that I wanted to protect, and I lost it a little bit, but I am taking some of that pigment away, and that will be all I need to do. When it's dry, I will just pop a little bit of yellow back into that and just make that happen. Fine, thanks, very lovely. Lockdown, so much time to paint. Don't I know it? Right, that's all I seem to be doing is painting pictures, and I love it. Okay, now then, let's just come in with a little sense of warmth underneath the waterline of this boat here. Just a suggestion that there is corrosion in the material or whatever it might be. Let's just put that in there, and let's just take that up into there a little way, like so, and around to that side as well, and maybe just a shimmy of it, a little shimmer there, and let that settle down to doing what it wants to do. And while I've got that colour, I'm just going to bring it into the front part of this and let that go away. And all I'm doing now is just really sort of trying to build things up. How long are we going? Oh, we are doing very well for the time. I'm surprised that we've got as far as we have. I'm going to let that dry out for a little while, and I'm just going to start looking back into our distance on our hills. So I'm going to put some aureolin and some ultramarine blue in to give me a slightly darker and slightly cooler green overall, and we shall see where that takes us. I'm just reading the yeah, okay, so I'm just going to come in with one or two other variants of green. I think that is actually too loud. I need it corrupted, so I'm going to come in with a little bit of Indian red. I think it's taking it too far to the red, so let's come back with some blues, a little bit more of the yellow. We've got a very, very dirty green. I think it needs a little bit of help from some phthalo green. Just chop some of that in. That's probably where it should be. So now I'm just going to come in and suggest one or two areas that are trees and foliage and bits and pieces on the distant hills. They come down and around to the shore, like so. And just look at what you're trying to paint. Look at the suggestions of the marks and try and make yours fairly comfortably mimic what you're seeing out there. Don't worry if you leave little bits of white. It could be anything from a building to some, you know, bits and pieces on the far shoreline that we can't actually see from this side. And look at one or two things. Now there is a building, I think it's a school, which is just this side of this boat here, but I haven't put it in, so I'm not overly worried by it. But if you were doing stuff like this, then it is good to try and observe one or two bits and pieces like that, because if you are selling locally, then obviously people will be looking for this sort of information to be in their painting. If it's of a scene, it should really contain the information that is certainly, if not immediately apparent, certainly to be expected to be seen within that general scene of the picture. I think I know what I said. Never mind if I didn't. I think most of you could work that out. Right, I'm going to take this all the way through and just deal with the rest of this. A little bit drier would be good. Just take some of the paint out of that, and the dark in here will also reinforce edges of the boats, but don't replace all of one with the other. They're merely a little guide of darks along the far distant shore, like so. It's quite a heavy woodland over here, so a lot of this is actually quite dark, to be honest with you. So let's just put that in down there, and we can leave one or two little bits out, but essentially it is quite dark, and that will help us reinforce the edge of the boat, or the sailing boat. There you go. Now then, there is quite a dark. Let's try and put that in. I'm going to use the same green colour, but I'm putting in quite a dark value in here. I can't quite see. I think there is the same sort of scallop on the front of the bow of this thing, but it is in dire need of a lot of attention, and it's fairly obvious. It's a hulk. It hasn't been started any process of repair and reconstruction, but I'm guessing, I think this one actually is a metal one, a steel one. So it just sits there and submerged in the water on every tide, of course, and yeah, is what it is. It's still a very valuable, believe it or not, piece of kit. I've had aspirations many years ago. I just love these vessels, but I did have aspirations to own one once, and one came up in St. Catherine's Dock, and it's quite a well-known one. It wasn't inexpensive, but it was about, I think at the time it was about £180,000. So a small house, I suppose, at the time, or reasonable house. But it was a lovely thing because it was moored up in St. Catherine's Dock on the Thames. It would have been a wonderful place to go. The thing is that I would not have ever been able to have taken it out. I would have had to have either hired a master to navigate the Thames and to take me out and where I wanted to go, while I trained over many years to obtain my own ticket, as it were, to be able to take it out myself with the crew. And then somebody, this particular one had a few problems, it turned out, so, you know, a word to the wise, as it were. And I was actually told that I needed to put away something like £15,000 a year just for the rear rudder. They don't last that long apparently, and every 4 or 5 years need a new one, and you need 15 grand a year at that time. Now I'm going back 20 years, And you know, back at that time, that's how much one would have cost. You needed to save about 60,000-70,000 just to replace that bit, I think. Apparently that was the going rate. I don't know. Perhaps I was given a load of hogwash. I have no idea, but it all sounded pretty scary, so I backed out. Anyway, I'm just going to reinforce that little bit of warmth in there. And there is actually quite a bit of red under there in front of that bow, and that sort of planing plate. And take that all the way through here. Just adding little skims of colour over the older colour. Alright, now then, we've done this and we're pretty much happy with that background colour. I'm just looking at doing a little bit more. It's ever so warm in here tonight. I've got all the curtains pulled behind me to stop any light flare, and I feel like I'm in a cocoon. So there we go. How many watching, Ben? Are we breaking 15 yet, or have we gone down to about 6? I hope not. I didn't know that old ships like this still sailed. Yes, many of them, Luke. And you are, I'm not sure where in the country you are, but down at, if you can go to, there's several places. Ramsgate Harbour. Is it Ramsgate or Broadstairs Harbour? Broadstairs, the little harbour at Broadstairs. I think I've got that right. One of them. Yeah, I think it's Broadstairs. There's the boat that is the local one, which used to carry the Shepherd and Neame on the sail. It was sponsored by them, but that boat is moored there and races out of there. These boats are moored all up and down the east coast. Some are at Faversham, in Faversham Creek and Orr Creek. There's some more. And of course Malden is another great place for several of these vessels to be moored up all year round. Anthea, hi, just seen this and it's looking great. Thank you very much for joining. 18 we've got, that's good. Okay, so let's carry on. I want to start getting a bit more depth in the boat before we start doing any of this area down here. So I'm going to go back in with some indigo, which is a great dark colour, like so, and I want two areas. I want the bluish in the indigo, but I'm going to come up here with some more of it. I'm going to add a little bit of my lovely combination of the orange into it too, which gives it that really dark deep colour. Because they're both transparent colours, they don't radiate light, they absorb the light through, the light passes through, so they appear much darker than any opaque colour. But while we've got dry paper here, let's just come back in and let's get more on this boat, and let's just try and pretty much sort of nail the boat into where we want it to be. And it's going to come up with its dark value all the way through to there and there, and in shadow that side, so a lot more of it to be seen. And you can't see too much of it anyway, but now I don't want all of this dark to be like that, so I'm just going to come in and I'm going to drag it through. But at the same time I'm going to take some off, like we did on here. It sort of works with the idea that it's catching the light, and as such it's paler, albeit we know it to be black. Now I can't see Webb's planing boards on his vessel right now. They don't appear to be in the picture. If they do, I can't quite see them. So maybe they are in the boatyard being repaired or being attended to, but we will leave them off as they're not part of at the moment. I will just come in with this rear mast very, very carefully one more time, not to breathe too heavily. There you go, one. And the half of this one, which is dark, we're going to put that in now. Oh, it's running off. It ran off. Ah, look at that. It ran off. Not to worry too much. I can't change that too much without wrecking the whole picture. So I'm going to have to live with that. My brush, I could feel my brush running away. It's one of those. It happens. It's not overly worried about. I'm not too worried about it. It could have been better, but it's not in that sense. Right, let's put this one in and be a little more careful this time. Good, that's where I want that to be. Ties into there. Now, as regards rigging, I don't do a lot of rigging, got to be said. Romarek, hi. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us tonight. Now then, I'm going to go in and I'm going to start putting in the darks of Batula. Now, first things first, let's establish the dark value of these planes. Now, they are going to be like so. Slightly oval at the top, not much, and a big dive down like that, and then we've got, that's the shape of them. There's one each side. They're held up until needed in the water. This one has got a significant reddy orange rust area to the front, which we will just put in by lifting some of the paint out that I've just put there and replacing it with a slightly reddish value, maybe even just a little tap, if I dare, of some cadmium red in there too, just to bring that up, and let that dry off and wait and be patient. Now I'm going to come in with the area underneath this part here, which is under the bow, and I'm going to put in predominantly a bit of burnt sienna, and a little bit of indigo to give me a dark, but a richer dark than the orange would have given. And I'm going to look at that shape as it comes up, and it leaves a lovely mark there, and just goes right up to and into the bow, and you can see where the water level goes through there. There's a slight bit of red there, and I'm just going to lose it a bit. I do need to put some red under it, but I can't right now. I've got to wait, I've got to be patient. And I've got to say that patience is never my strongest suit, but got to be patient all the same. And I'm going to bring a little bit more red into that mix as that comes down and away under here, like so, towards that. Look at it, check it, does it need to be lighter? I think I could lose the lead edge of that, just soften it up, take some away, lose it a bit, and settle for that at the moment. Now I want to get in, there's a lot of green sort of weed growth underneath this vessel. So I'm going to use raw sienna, a bit of phthalo green went in there, but a lot of raw sienna to make a dirty but fairly fresh green. So I also need a bit of lemon to just pump that up a little bit, just putting in a little bit of green where the thing sits on the water mud all the time, like so, and it goes up to and through where that little dinghy is sitting, and leave it like that. There is also some on the front end of this vessel here, which I'm just going to put in and suggest, and leave it. Right, where are we? Sorry, it's at Whitstable, not Broadstairs. Oh, of course it is. Hey, you meant to have briefed me before we started, Wendy, so it's all down to you, not me at all. You should have said. Right, okay, let's carry on. We've got to get some darts going, and we need to look at the top of this boat, and there's the front of our boat. I'm going to mix up a bit more dark. I use some of this indigo, but I'm going to put in some red, and that makes a very dirty purple. We've done that before, and let's bring that lovely dark color round, and then it comes down to meet that area there. It's very, very dark on the other side here, but let's just leave that little bit of line there that suggests the bow, and the, you know, the there is a what's his name in there, an anchor sitting there, and then we want to bring in a little bit of dark in here, scratching it very, very dry brush as it comes up the boat, like so, to give a little bit of sort of sense of reflection and other lights. and we've got a little bit coming down through there and up to there, and that will reinforce that area. And let's just draw in some of these there's a little white pencil line mark that runs around the edge of this boat. I'm going to use the dark on this side of it to suggest that very fine line that runs around the edge of this boat. And I'm going to come up this side here, continue that idea on, take the line first off right up to the top where we need it, leave a little bit for the name badge, which is Batula, and then just try and carefully take that line a little closer as you dare without touching that mark underneath, and it goes back the same on the other side. There you go. So now we've got our boat pretty much sorted. One or two darks will go in later on, but not immediately so. Okay, let's just leave that for the moment. Let's start looking at some of this foreground. First off, while I've got that, I'm just going to come back in here and give this another level of dark, which that dark will then isolate the bow side on this side of this vessel. We know what's going on here, but we don't know too much information about this vessel here. So I'm just going to draw in one or two things. There's like a fence or some sort of construction up there, like a, I don't know, gantry, whatever it might be. I'm going to put that there, leave it there, and we know that there's something there. We've got to put a bit of dark in still. We're not dark enough in one or two places. We've got to come back on that. And I'm not going to try and put in our boats too much at this moment. We will look at those later on. My first thing is to let's start putting these in the water. We've got 19. Oh, that's good. I'm glad. We're not quite up to that magic 22 yet. So I think everybody should go out, grab a neighbour and bring them back inside and make them sit and watch. And then we'll have double. Right, okay, so now I'm going to go back to the bigger brush. And I'm looking now first and foremost at these reflections. And I do want to be, I want to get them in, but I want them to be very soft and not very strong. And it's extremely hard to look at some of them, and you know, you've got lovely warm colors coming in here and you've got cooler ones. So I'm just going to look at that and try and preserve this blue that's coming through here first and foremost. Now to begin with, we've got a lovely sense of pinky values in here, and I'm just going to put in suggestions, nothing more at the moment. I don't really want to get too involved in getting too heavy with some of these. I just want to put in some. I've already lost my blue, look at that, and just one or two marks in. Now I'm not worried if my marks are not exactly as the rest of it is. I really am not that bothered by that. I just want to have something that is very beautiful to see and pretty to watch and look at, and yeah, it's just nice. I'm going to suggest that coming down through there, and this one that's coming down through here, making sure that if you do this that your painting underneath is actually dry, because if it's not, you will end up with more problems. I'm going to put in a little dark marks that are suggesting the mast here going down through the water like so, and it starts to bring the whole thing to life a little bit more. And I've got to put some poles in. I actually didn't leave the light for the poles, so I'm actually going to have to go in with the dark and then use a little bit of white gouache just to bring those two back to life. I should have made myself a little bit more wary of that. The only thing I actually have saved is that little boat, and which is not enough really at the end of there. I should have saved a bit more. So now I'm going to come in with some red and some indigo, and I've got some lovely beautiful reflections in here which I'm going to put in now and start putting those in. And we've got a lovely sense of this one too, like that. I don't want to put too much information. I just want to let it sort of almost speak itself. You can get too embroiled in tons of detail, and this is where this lovely brush is allowing me to do so many things like this and just be quite expressive with the marks that I am making. There's a lot of dark in here. Let's bring that like so. Okay, and we can tap a little bit of red into some of this too, where it's reflecting the underside of the hull, and also up close to the waterline here. And let's just take that down and give that a little bit of a shape in there, and take that all the way through there, almost making those two blend together. We don't quite see where the water starts and finishes, which works quite well as far as I can see. And I'm going to come in and do a very, very similar thing here. I'm going to observe the back of the boat here as it comes out and away, and I want to preserve this light bit of water, so I'm going to bring the reflection as it's described in the painting, in the photo, and just take that through there like so, and let it come on and run past into this one here, which it seems to be doing like that. Okay, take that into there, around the back end there, and into the back of this boat up to there, leaving a little bit of space for our lovely little dinghy to go in. A little bit of light along there wouldn't hurt. It's just suggestive, a bit of water catching a little bit of lights from somewhere. And I think that part of the reflection of the boat is just works. Yeah, well, make them sit one end of the room, John, while you hog the computer. Just let them be there, and that'll work. Right, okay, I don't want to break the law with social what's this thing. Just going to reinforce this line here, and again through here. And then I'm going to look at one or two. Now these poles, I want to get those in, so I'm going to come back out and I'm going to pick up my little rigger that I like to use. It's not, as I say, I keep saying this, it's not a proper rigger. It's a sort of very long, thin brush, but not quite a full rigger. So I'm going to wet that up. As you can see, it's got some length to it. What on earth I did there, I don't know. I'll lose that, but it's quite long. It's almost a rigger. When it grows up, it'll be a rigger. So there we go, a little bit of indigo back in again, and this time I'm going to use some burnt sienna into that. More indigo, more sienna, make a really enough paint to make it work for me. And I will be using that in some of these other places further on, but I want to put in the darks of some of these posts that I have actually missed. When they're dried, then I will come back in and add a little bit of light with some gouache, just to make sure that we are aware that they're there. That's one or two. I'm not even counting, I'm just seeing what's roughly on there, and make it sort of look as it should do. One or two up on here. There is that rail through there, just going to tap that in. Part of me wants to do some of this rigging. I'm going to come put in that, stay there and there. There's that one there and there. And how much more of that I do not know. I'll put that little bit there. And yeah, well, I might chicken out, but we'll see. And there is, of course, that part there, and you've got to look where this rigging goes up to about there on the mast. So do you do it? Some people will use, oh, not quite in the right place, but it's not far. There you go. And one or two other posts, like so. Bit of detail, bit of information. I don't know what all that is, but it works. And while we've got this then, and this is pretty much dry, let's just come back in here with a deliberate dark value in here, just to give this bow some more presence, and a lot more in here, around here, just giving that a bit more there. Okay, one or two in here just to beef this up. Like that. And let's come into this. Now I really quite like this, so part of me doesn't really want to disturb it too much, but I feel that I do need to come in here with more dark values. I'm going to come back to the bigger brush, just going to sweep in one or two areas again just to disturb this up and give it a bit more, and maybe a few other lines darker over the dark lines will just make you look like there's darks within darks, as it were. And I think that works quite nicely. Take that all the way through. And it's warm back there, so I'm going to actually add a bit more of the red to that. So it's catching a little bit of warmth out the back there. Just tease it away, like so. Soften any edges that you feel you need to. And I feel this here needs a bit of red under it, a little bit of that lovely rust colour under here. And let that run away. Okay. There is a definite warmth in this part here. Put that in. Little touches, it doesn't need an awful lot at the end of the day. You'll think that you need a massive amount of this or that, and it really doesn't take that much. What I want to do here is just suggest the ribs. These are built up with loads of ribs like so. They go down its full length, and they are bracing, I guess, and then a little bit of shape down around the shadow like so. And where that little boat is here, there's a little dark area here where there's a little bit of back end shadow to the boat, which we'll just put that in and leave it, let that dry up. So I'm not procrastinating, and I am, because I've actually got to start thinking of this area in here and seeing where we go. But I do need a glug, first glug of the evening, and it's not Guinness because I've already had that. Okay, thank you very much. I like transport. That's very good. Appreciate that. I didn't see you come in, but welcome and thank you. All right, now then, regards all the lines on this vessel, you can get very technical very quickly, and you can start putting a few in. I'm just going to suggest one or two just by a quick little scoop down with the brush like so. Just a quick line through here. There are some that hold that to there like so. There are a mass coming down this way that come down to the side, and the same that way, that support the main mast, as it were. I'm not going to try and recreate all the rigging on this vessel. I am just merely going to tell you that of course there are some bits of rigging there to be had, and the same on this one, which emanates from way up here somewhere, like so. And I'm resting my hand on the paper as I do some of this, but it is merely a painting. It is not something that is so set in stone that, you know, people are going to start counting the rigging ropes. And I know people out there do, but they're not my sort of people in many ways, because a lot of them are literally trying to find fault with what you're doing. I've had people count things on things before, and I think, go get a life. It's just not worth the hassle. I'm going to put a couple of, I don't know what I put in there. I think I just had a little shark come in, so I don't know what I'm going to do with that one. Someone's dived in. I don't know what. I can't do anything with that. A little mark there that's appeared. I will I just don't know what I can do with it. I'm going to see if I can tease some of it out, but I could end up having a problem. Okay, Mehdi, I will do that. Just going to lift this first if I can, take that out, if it will come out without too much of a problem, and just take some clean paper and tap that back. Oh, look at that, I think we've got away with it. The shark's gone, and I just want, what I want to do is actually put a couple of dark bases, one or two yachts that are out here, and a nice red coloured one that was out there somewhere. So I'll just put a little bit of red there and leave it at that for the moment. And we're going to put maybe let's put a nice yellow one I see in there. Let's just put a little bit of yellow in one of these and leave it like that, and the rest is going to be little white highlights that we put in at the end. Now let's get into this. This area here is going to be predominantly a violet, dirty violet, so we're going to be using quite a bit of Indian red for this, some indigo, just to take it down to a dirty violet color. Maybe even make a second mix with some cobalt into that and make it a slightly bluer color. And it's a whole raft of different looks. Essentially this is the mud when it's like this pretty much all the time. Even once the tide's gone way out, it doesn't really drain off, never enough really to walk on. It's quite dodgy to do that. So I'm going to bring a little shape in here. It does look very, very strong in color, and you'll be right, it is, but it will dry a lot lighter. So I'm just going to put in one or two areas like this and just let them dry out and play around with some of these, because there's some tufts of foliage, grasses out here that have gone on and seeded and created a little colony or something. But this mud is great because, you know, it just, especially when the tide's going back out, it leaves little eddies, like over here you can see little eddies of mud that are sort of out into the water. And this is the beauty of watercolor, because you can put these little taps in and they just become what you hope them to be, which are just little bits of mud still above the water and still popping out and showing themselves. But you create these lovely little eddies, but you've got to draw them. You can't just punch a whole load of paint in there and expect them to be there. You've got to work it. You've got to draw with the paint and allow the whole thing to set itself up. Now this is the first colour, and once this is in, we will then go back in with some of these other little values, little areas that are maybe left catching a bit of light, the odd little trickle of water that's not managed to seep away is in place, and that will go right up to and swallow up some of these little reflections from the boats themselves. And as I said, they make fantastic lead-in lines in the water, so we're going to use them to the best of advantage, and leaving a little bit of light in here in one or two places that there is still some water to be had, and not use all of it up. Okay, usually I'm jumping between the two piles of colour, the warm and the cool, so I'm using them both like that, and take that all the way down to the bottom of the page right here. Just lose those little light areas there and let it dry. Just let it set up, and that is all we want to do at the moment. Yeah, I have got to come in with this green, and I might just come in with the lighter value, which I'm going to put in here. I'm going to mix it up in this pot, and to that I'm going to use a different brush. I'm going to come in with some Aureolin primarily, and some phthalo green, which on its own you can see how heavy and harsh that is. I'm going to temper it with some burnt raw sienna, just take it away from the pureness of the green, and I'm just going to sort of put in just one or two tufts out here, just to suggest to begin with. Something like that. They're quite dark, and they will be dark. This is just catching a little bit of light on some of the areas of the grass that's, yeah, well, it's just catching the light, I suppose. Like so. And I'm not going to try and draw individual bits of grass. That's just not what I'm about, and I wouldn't do that even if you paid me. I'm just going to put that pile of grass there, and I think I'm going to put another pile of grass somewhere here, something like that, and just let those dry and not bother with doing anything else to them at the moment anyway, certainly. Alright, so that is our little piles of vegetation in the edge of Pin Mill. There's one on the mud in here. I'll just put that in, I guess. Just let that, leave that and let that dry off. Right, while that's dry, I'm going to have another glug. Well said, what's Anthea saying? You deserve so many more people watching. This is, as always, a fabulous and informative video. Thank you, Anthea. Cheers to you. And yeah, thank you. Well, you know, I mean, I keep putting the word out there. If everybody who watches it spreads the word, puts the word out there to other people, hopefully more will come on. I don't know, it could be the time in the evening, people are busy. I don't know. I started this off because we're in lockdown, and I've enjoyed the process, and it's a lot of fun to do. It's quite taxing in time, and you know, I do get quite tired by the time I finish, but that's all part and part of it. I'm not too worried about that. Back at 23, I think that's pretty much a record. I don't know if there's anybody else out there who hasn't come on the chat who knows me. Just make yourself known and say hi. That'd be great. Yes, we need to get more viewers. I think we should put a petition out. But I gotta say to every one of you and others who do watch and support my channel, thank you very much. We are at 1100 subscribers on the painting channel now, which is extremely good for the time we've been going, and we have got another 750 hours to cut into, and then we can actually monetize this channel. At the moment it's not monetized. It is not a big enough channel, but it is growing, and to everybody who helps that, as I say, I really do appreciate all the support that you guys give me. It's great, because if I didn't get the support, there would be so little reason to carry it on. It just wouldn't bother. Right, okay. I'm waffling because I'm trying to get this to dry up really, and I'm trying to avoid using the hairdryer again. But I think what I can do while I'm waiting is come in with that green and dirty it up a little bit, and just give this a little extra layer of something in here, which is taking it away from the purity of the green, and start to give it some dead or dying or warmer little bits of fronds in the grasses themselves. And then we'll come back once that's dry and pop in a few darks just to tie it into the ground and the mud around it. I think that works. Leave it like that. Right, okay. If we talk about trains too, I can post it on the train sighting. Well, we do talk about trains quite a bit, don't we, guys? There's quite a few, but I don't want to upset all the ladies out there who don't run trains. I could talk trains all night. On Instagram I get a lot of people following because of all the paintings I've been putting out there and selling, and I go through, lots of people follow, and I always go on them first, and if they do artwork that is a nice quality, or I like the subject matter, I'll friend them back, no problem with that. And that doesn't mean to say that those who I don't friend are rubbish painters. They may just do a style of painting or something that really doesn't interest me, and many of them that come on are private accounts, so I don't ever follow those back, because that's a private account. It's as simple as that. one guy come on tonight, and he's an illustrator, and the first thing I saw he had was some illustrations of train engines, steamers, and I went bang. I followed him straight back. I didn't even hesitate. I'll talk to him later, but I didn't hesitate. I liked what he was doing, so yeah, I was gonna have some of that. But there you go, that's the way it is. Right, I'm gonna come in with a bit of a darker green value, maybe a tap of orange into that, just to really screw it up a little bit and give me another value in these grasses here. Now I don't want them to be so strong. There is a nice reflection underneath them. We're going to bring that into play, but I just want to suggest them the sort of lights and darks of these stems, and using some of the negative space coming back in here. I didn't ask Wendy, is Judy? I keep looking, I haven't seen her name pop up. Maybe she hasn't managed to make it tonight. I'm just going to put that in through there, and that will give us pretty much a dark area there. I'm going to do the same on this one, capture it all at the bottom and just bring in some darks through there like that. And pretty much all of these two will be darker because they are out of the sun, out of light, and they're going to be that much darker. Alright, now I will come in with a much darker value on them. Some indigo now, a little bit of phthalo, not too much, but an awful lot of orange coming into that, maybe even some red to kill the green back. And just come into the dark bases of these here. I think that needs a bit more blue to it, so I'll make a little pile over here, bring some of that to it, just play around with the two areas like so, tapping off some of it. I just want to suggest the dark base to these and then come in with a nice reflection right at the end like so. Okay, I don't think we've got any of our American friends with us tonight either. I'll never monetize my channel, I don't like the frustrating ads. No, well that's very true, I get that, I do get that. Well Luke, you'll get that the way you're going, and I hope you do, I really do. Then you can treat your nan to a nice cup of tea somewhere in a lovely cake shop. Yeah, no, so that's fantastic, and I'm glad they are. They do it. It's sort of nice that they are well received, and I do enjoy doing them. Right, I'm just going to put a dark in there, and this one here is like a little splay, and this part here too. All right, and I'm going to wait for that to dry now, because I do want to put some shadowy colors in. The other one, the big one, may be a little bit drier to be able to put some darker blues in. And I'm just going to come, and I'm not going to go over all of it, I don't think. I'm just going to put in that lovely deep blue. Look at that, and that just catches off over there. A little bit in there. And as that comes away into this, I'm going to just soften the edge out. It's very, very strong, and I don't mind that, but let's just soften that lovely little suggestion of reflection there too, and make that run around a little bit like that. Okay, and this one here also, let's come in and put in that reflection. Something like that. And a very tiny one on here behind. It's actually got a lot of mud, but my mud is not at that point, so I'm going to put a little reflection of that one in regardless, and there's a little bit on there which we will do the same thing with, like so, and maybe just suggest a little bit more coming this way on there. Alright, well it's not exactly as is, but it's not bad. I'm quite happy that it suggests there's that growth in the water. We've got a lot more dark, muddy, greeny, dirty colours to bring into play. which is the very slippery, weedy stuff that grows on the mud. And I'm just going to put some of those in here to begin, and they will be scratched on and moved around like so. And you can see, as I say, you stand on this stuff and you will be on your posterior quicker than you can say, look at that. I assure you. And I won't own up to the fact that I've done it. I have nearly done it. I don't think I've actually done it. I was walking down one part and I thought it was really okay, and my footing started to go, and I just had enough gumption to get back out of trouble. Okay, and try and bring some of that across there too. One or two other places. I'll put a little bit more yellow and a bit more orange to that, into that green there. Bring some of that in. Quite dirty, quite muddy, but I'm using a lot of dry brush. What I'm doing is I'm tapping it down and pushing the ferrule almost into the paper and depositing paint in a very dry manner in this fashion. So it's mixing it all up. It's not just a pure green, it's almost suggested that it's got dark, dirty areas or sort of muddy areas, bit of reflection here and there, one or two things, just making a difference in the colour that you're seeing as this goes forward. And let's take that dark way up to there and tap a few bits out beyond that little tuffet, like so. Good. Well, I'm really glad about that here. So I don't know what to do about it. I do not understand. But hopefully it will get rid of it in time. I'm using some of this stuff here. If you look at it, you can almost see that where something's been dragged through in the past or whatever, it's almost like the stuff is growing in protected little wells within the disturbance of the mud. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, it's just how it seems. But I'm using them, I don't want to get too wet with this paint, I'm using them as lead-in lines, really, more than anything else. Just little bits of lead-in, and suggest that takes your eye to the boats. That's the idea. So I can just put one or two areas and marks in like so on the mud, and yeah, and just lead your eye up to the picture where I want you to go and look at it. It's quite a large lump in here. We're going to put a couple of bits in there. Okay. I'm a bit quiet, just checking it as I go through it. Just tapping one or two other areas as well. I mean, it's just adding a little bit more information here and there, just to just make the whole thing having a lovely feel in the foreground of more depth. And that's actually running. There's going to be some, I'm going to put that mask in. I'm going to come in, I need to put some more darks in here. I realise that now. So I'm going to come in with some reds and some indigo. I'm going to come in with this brush, and I want to come in with a dark in here first and foremost, which accentuates that. One or two areas here, I'm going to just beef some of those up here. I'm not going to bring this all the way down to this grass as suggests in the photo, but I do want to take a few lines across there and across here too, to suggest that there is movement in the water generally. think that looks quite nice actually. I quite like that. I want to bring some more information in here. Again, I'm using the dryness of the brush and the medium. Not a lot of water involved. But before I do, I'm going to just come in and look at just reinforcing one or two, this shadow here of the mast, this one here of this mast. Then we've got, you can't really see the boom on the photo, but of course my positioning of this and everything else means I've got to put it in. So I'm going to just come in with the reflection here of some of these posts in the background, which can be seen. And one or two there and here, like so. Another one there, another one down through there maybe, and whatever that is up there, and put that in. All sort of mimicking what's above. It may not be exact and it may not be identical to the painting, but it's not that bad. I'm going to put in a orangey, dirty orange mark now. A lot of transparent orange going into this, and I want to put in suggested these fence panels have got these post fence panels. What a fool. And I'm going to suggest there's the main mast coming down. I'm just going to suggest that there is this mark of this jib coming down that way, or jib, boom, whatever you call it, I don't know. And maybe this sort of shape mast through there and something like that. Okay, it's just taps, it's just indications. And yeah, I like where that's gone. And one or two little warmer marks in some of this here, like so. I think I've just created another mooring post that actually didn't exist, so I probably just have to go back this way and put one in that was missing. There you go, now they all tally. Let's have a look at that. That is the AGC turning up the volume when Paul stops talking. Hiss, hum, fades in and out. So okay, yeah, well, I'm getting the grip of that now. I understand a little bit of the science from Ben of what's going on, but apparently there's something in the camera that it sort of compensates when I go quiet. So either I've got to keep rambling constantly so it doesn't happen, or when I go quiet you're going to get a bit of a hiss, unless I can figure out by going online, googling the camera next week, and seeing if I can't figure out how I can turn this particular operation off within the camera, and hopefully that will stop this darned hiss. Glug time. Okay, where are we on the time? Hour and 38. We are climbing towards our 2 hours, so I am aware of that, people. Right, okay, let's come in with a few other values in here. A little bit of red here and there. Not red really, a bit too red if anything. Perhaps a little bit of phthalo green into that red, just to bring it back to the green edge a little bit. Just give me a few darker areas in some of this growth that's on the mud here. And it's amazing how this water just creeps in. I actually think this is a flood tide, to be honest with you, and from my memory, but you know, this goes all the way up. I mean, you can't, it comes across the road, on the bank you got the pub, and I've already told you that it comes up the wall of the pub and sits there. That's amazing. Well, it's not a new camera, John. It's actually a Sony AX53. Two of them I've got. I bought them for filming my painting videos generally, but now they're being used for probably a year or so old. Since, well, actually it can be pinned down a lot closer to that, because I bought them when I started my channel properly, so they will be a year old in the end of July. So yes, I bought them for that purpose, so that's why I got them. I started off filming with my DSLRs, and of course they have this factory fitted 30-minute cutoff, and when you're painting with two cameras it's a nightmare because you don't know what stop, what start, and I had so many films wrecked because I didn't know if I had the complete thing or not. So I went out and bought these camcorders. Now I do understand that there are one or two DSLR versions out there where they've actually got rid of this factory fitting. It's actually, it was a requirement of the cinematographic industry placed upon camera manufacturers that no one could take a DSLR because it's got depth of field. That's overall. The camcorder doesn't have a depth of field within it, but a DSLR has got depth of field, and they could record films from cinemas of releases. So with only a half-hour slot on them, obviously the film would be incomplete because by the time they stopped, turned it, put it back on again, they've missed some of the footage. And I think that's why it was put in. But I do believe now that there's such a level of sophistication with kit like this, and people don't really these days sit in a cinema at the back of the cinema with a camcorder going. Maybe once, but not these days. So I think some of that has now been lifted and making it somewhat easier, but still earlier DSLRs of course still don't have that facility. Alright, I'm pretty much sure that that part of the foreground is gone as far as I want to take it. I like what's happened to it. It's a pretty little image in that regard. We've got a lovely set of light and water and the mud, and I think that works quite well. I just want to beef up this little area here a little more before we go into some highlights. I'm just going to tap in one or two areas here that just make it a little stronger, as it were, and one or two areas out there. Okay, now let's start looking at our boats and areas that we need some white gouache. I will now go back to my little rigger and I will find my gouache. I know I've got it here. Yes, there it is. Okay, right. DSLRs can film. My one takes really loud shutter click, so it wouldn't be able to film. No, DSLRs do film, but the point about them, Luke, is that when they're made, they have to have an algorithm within that turns them off at 30 minutes or 20 something minutes. So you can't continuously film with it. With this camera, I can keep film all the time. The battery can run, or indeed the card will hold the footage. It will keep filming. You can't do that with 99% of all the DSLRs out there. Right, I'm just going to come in with the white on this mast now. Just going to run it carefully down in that line like so. Comes down and joins this one. Alright, we're going to leave that there, and there is a little bit of light on top of that. We're going to put that in, and there's one or two areas of white. We're going to sort of look at those. We're going to put a little bit of white board in that's on the side of this boat. Leave that to settle down. It's actually going to, that's quite wet, so I don't want to touch that one little bit. Take some of that paint and wet out. There is a little tender buoy, little fender, which I'm going to put in there. And all these little things help when it comes to things like this, little reflections off of the side, and you can see them, and it works very, very well. Here we lost this part on the back end of the boat, so we're going to put that in now. Very strong, lovely piece of white part. I'm going to put that in and replace that. That's fine. There's a little bit of the light. We can just run that little key line around the side of this boat where it may have got a little bit lost, and just through there, up. That looks good. I like that. And what I will do is I'm just going to put in a little line to suggest the anchor on the front of this one. I'm going to go over it with a little bit of orange in a moment, but just leave it like that for now. I could go in with a lot darker values on these masts. I'm not going to. I could. I didn't say I would. because I'm a coward. And I'm going to put the white cloth from that. They carry a foresaw, and on this one it's all wrapped up there. And there is a tender in there. Now let's put this tender in. I'm going to make it a white tender. I quite like the idea of the white, and then we can just put in a suggestion of a reflection of that little fella sitting there. Just dragging it across the surface, and it's got a couple of actually I might make it grey, because there is a couple of tender buoys on the side which would be nice. I'm going to work around that when that's dry. And of course we got a little sort of rope coming down there, and one that just comes down there to hold the back of this fella. Then we've got the nameplate of Batula on the side, put that in. And where else are we? We got little caps. We can put little white taps on top of here, and there. Just little bits and pieces, nothing too elaborate. A little bit of light on the bottom there, and then we got these little I forgot what I call them now, but things that hold the dinghy up. And it's not, I mean, obviously it would be, but if something happened to the boat and it started to sink, they'd use the dinghy. But actually these can sometimes sit up in an estuary, come to rest on the mud eventually, but they will be tied off, and the occupants can come ashore in the little dinghy, which this is what this is here, and then, you know, they've got access to the shore, etc, etc. I'm just going to put a little bit more of a reflection in there, and I'm going to turn my attention to these boats. Now there are more than I've allowed for. I'm going to put one in there and put its mast in, another mast in there, mast, and they are just little taps of the brush, nothing, you know, I'm not putting in too much, just enough. There is a boom on the side there with a sail, put that in. There's a boat, put that boat behind that one, doesn't matter. Nice tall mast. And this part of it is very, very quick, because you're just finishing off. We're just, you know, making sure all our punctuation, as it were, is correct. Okay. Sometimes these have a pennant, but I believe that's only up when they are in operation and working. So we won't bother with that at the moment. So I'm just looking around at this now and seeing what needs extra little bits and pieces, and I'm going to put in some little bits of dark shadows for some of these boats out here. This one in particular could do with a little bit more weight to it, and so it looks that it's part of. There's a little bit of something on the side of that one, and maybe just the suggestion, there's a couple of little blue water lines on some of these other white boats. You often see that. Let's just give that a little bit of a blue edge there, maybe a little bit one there, maybe a bit of blue on the boom of that one. We've done the red. We can actually then, we could put in, get silly with some of our detail and put little extra little bits and pieces in. I don't think we need to. I did say though, what I have forgotten, I'm going to actually mix up a little bit of gouache with some of the other values of ochre on one side. Maybe a little bit of orange will do it, just to make it an opaque warm colour, which is sort of where these posts are catching some light, like that. Dry brush is just depositing enough paint to make the suggestion and nothing more. Right, part of me really wants to get in there and do a little bit more on that mast. I am bottling it, I really am, because I know what's going to happen, but I am going to go for it. So I just want to put in, slim that down a bit and just put a bit of a dark line in here like that, and that gives that a bit more presence. And I want to do the same for these rear ones, and you watch, I'm going to just regret touching this. I know I'm going to regret touching this, but we're going to give it a go. So I'm going to come in here. I'm not using the same brush, so that is in my favor. I'm using the rigger, which has a little bit more control than the other brush. When you put it under pressure, that is, you've got a little bit more help with this particular brush, and so just keep it nice and even coming down and just tidying up here. This actually has got a nice bit of thickness here of line, so I'm going to put that in, then bring this darkness down in here to that point there, and to see if I need any darks in here. Got a couple little buoys out in the estuary of the river, so they've got a little reddish tint to them. So I'm going to just tap in, maybe just a little tap there and another one at the back there, like so. Can't see too much. That's all you need to put in. Yeah, I think we're pretty much done. I mean, I'm looking around for an excuse to do a bit more. I do need to come in, as I said, and put a little greyish colour, but I'm not actually. There's a lovely blue in there. I'm going to use some cobalt turquoise for this little dinghy. I'm going to put that in like there. Just a lovely tap of that greeny blue colour, and that works beautifully with all those reds in colour around this vessel. A little bit in there to the reflection, and I think that's home and dry. We could go back in and put those little white fenders in if we wanted to. I do and will just put in a little dark, because we can see into the top of the boat there. Just a little bit of dark in there, so we can see there, and maybe suggest a little strength under there for the shadow, and to the back. I think we got away with that. Worked out quite well. Right, anything on the chat? Don't forget the anchor was going to get a bit orange. Oh yes, it was. Cheers, Ben. You could find yourself outside of lockdown with a new job, mate. Keeping an eye on what I'm missing. Right, let's just put that on. Let's just suggest this is a very old, rusty old anchor in the front there, and we'll leave it at that. That's all it needs. And maybe do I just put that, suggest that? I don't know. Okay, right, I digress, and I think that we are pretty much there. If I've missed something, I do apologize. I do feel a couple of things like this could just come down in there a little bit more. There you go. I think that's nice. I really do. I keep saying it, but I really do. Alright, all I'm going to do now is what I normally do, is I'm just going to sign it. Down here somewhere out the way. And while I'm just having a finish off chat with you guys, I will we'll take off the edge and have a bit of a reveal, but I'm going to have a glug first. So guys and girls, yeah, looking great. Such a pleasing subject. Well, this is, now I hope this is all right with you guys, because I suggested it in my little bit of advertising when I promoted this image tonight. And what I wanted to do is to used tonight to do this image in watercolor, and I was going to use the Monday night stream to do the same image, possibly the same image, but only do it in oils. Now I don't know, there are 18-20 odd of you watching right now. Just, you know, as a little bit of a poll, I suppose, tell me what you think of that. I mean, I can do an oil of a Thames barge, a completely different picture if you would like, but you know, I just sort of thinking that what would you like? Would you like to see the same picture done in oils on Monday? John, nice that you could join us, mate. Sorry to lose you, but hopefully see you on Monday. But yeah, tell me, do you want to see the same one on Monday done in oils, or would you like to see a Thames barge done in oils but a very different picture? I don't mind. I'm just trying to show it as a bit of an experiment. But yes, the same one in oil, John, or a different Thames barge in oil. I can do either, it doesn't matter. But I felt that it would be nice to explore both of them. So yes, you're not telling me that yes, the same picture in oil or a different Thames barge. Just let me know that. I'm getting the idea that you don't mind. Same picture again, but wait a few weeks. What's the point of that, Luke? The idea is an experiment, young man. I can wait, I don't mind. I just thought it would be a nice idea to see how the two work, but I can do a different one as well. Would be the same, would like the same picture in oils. Okay, Derek. Anthea, I'd love to watch the one in oils. I'm just beginning and playing it oils, struggling. Please, we do some painting with greens. So many greens, yeah. I'll do one in a couple of weeks if you can bear with me, Anthea, on the greens. That's not a problem. Great painting, love it. Good to be seen in oils. Yeah, same picture. Yeah, I think you're being outvoted, Luke. Right, well, while we're still debating oils or whatever, I'm going to take this off for the reveal. I love this part of doing it, and actually lately I keep forgetting to do that, don't I? So let's take this all apart right now, and come on, there we go. So be very, very careful. We really must make sure that the painting is dry at this point, or else it can tear the surface. But I think this is working quite nicely. I just love this part of any of my painting. Just seeing, it's just got to be this white, beautiful white edging to a piece of work that you do. Right, there you go. Just frames it so beautifully. Last bit. Come on. Ta-da! There we go. Alright, let's just move that into camera shot properly. There we are. One nice, I hope, watercolour of Thames Barges at Pin Mill. Yeah. Good. Is it? Well, I thought it was an interesting exercise to have a go at that. I mean, don't sit there thinking that I'm going to do exactly the same two barges shape-wise, and you can put one over the other and it'll be identical. My drawing skills are not that good. They're okay, but they're not that good. But you're going to get some representation of both of them, but one done in oil. Thank you very much for the compliments, and Anthea and Ewan and Sue. Yeah, it's all great stuff. So don't forget, there is my Patreon channel. For those of you who are painting in lockdown, and I know some of you are enjoying these streams, and long may that continue. That's why they're being done, for people to get something from and enjoy. But if you want more contact with me through my Patreon channel, there are several tiers to get involved with. It does help support me and my channel, certainly in these darker days of lockdown. and it takes an awful lot of work to create all this content for you guys, not just on the streams, but of course on the channel itself, and also the Patreon channel, which is gaining a lot of videos. And what's happening with the patrons are getting their own individual content to some degree, but they're also getting a lead in. So videos that I'm actually putting together now, they will get ahead of time by several weeks before anyone else gets them, and they'll get the full versions where other people may only see a cut down version, as it were. So it's well worth having a look at the Patreon, and if you would like to get involved with Patreon, please do so. You'll be most welcome, and knowing that you're helping me directly support the channel and my efforts. With that all said, there is an extra stream with that, and there is a tier in there that I purposely put in for lockdown to help people have direct one-to-one contact with me. A couple of times a month you can get involved. You can use a Zoom connection with me, which is simply put together on your mobile or your iPad or your laptop, whatever it can be, and we can talk directly, help you with individual bits of work, and just work together for 40 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that, twice a month, and really hone in on what you need. So there is that to consider. Bernadette, hi, thank you very much. Appreciate that. But before everybody goes, please enjoy your painting, enjoy this weekend, stay safe, stay distanced, and maybe I will put the reference to this picture up over the weekend on my Patreon page. Now, you don't have to be a patron to use it. Any of the pictures that I've done on YouTube, I will put the reference on my Patreon for you to download for your own use. But I do stress it's for your own use and for no commercial use, please. That's the only respect I ask for people in that regard. But yeah, thanks ever so much, Jeff. Cheerio. I don't know who's still here, so I'm saying goodbye to everybody, but I don't know who's still around. But I've enjoyed tonight anyway, and I do hope to see you all again on Monday. And don't forget my Patreon Sunday evening, please. Don't let me be talking to myself. I'm sure that won't happen. I know Wendy and probably Judy will be there. Teresa, if you're about Sunday, don't forget the stream on Sunday evening. Well worth looking at and enjoying, I hope, and there'll be a lot fewer of us. It is purely pitched at you guys to have fun with. Alright, so with that in mind, we've just gone past the 2 hours, so it's probably about time I turn this off and let you all get what's left of your evening. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for turning up and supporting me and the channel. And as I say, if you're not a patron, think about it. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, please subscribe. And I'll catch each and every one of you next Monday for part 2 of the Thames Barges in oil. Okay, guys, take care. Bye.